Hey everybody, welcome back to Mental Health on the Mic. And happy Valentine's Day. Lorraine, I'm so
Yay!
excited. This is a fun
I
holiday, right?
am. I love this holiday. I love the whole energy, the whole vibe of it all. It's such a beautiful holiday.
Yes. Now, obviously, Valentine's Day, people have mixed opinions on it. It can be stressful for some people. Honestly, it's stressful if you're single, it's stressful if you're in a relationship.
Yeah,
It can be just because everybody has a different take. Some love to give into the tradition, other people don't like that. You're in a
right.
relationship, you stress about getting people things, and if you're single, you feel lonely. So, I mean, what's your take? Because I think that there's a lot of things to be excited about, but also it can be stressful for some.
Yeah, I think it's a very hyped up holiday. It's very, that one day it's full of love and, you know, a lot of people it has to be perfect, everything has to go right, whether you're taking someone out or, with your family, like you feel like it's this big hyped up day and you want it to be beautiful, you want it to be special. And it's a lot of stress too. And I think for those who feel like they don't have like a significant other, so they feel left out, but I feel like Valentine's Day is so much more than that.
Yeah.
Like no matter if you have a significant other or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, like you have family, like there's always someone you can appreciate on this day, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I think, not to say Valentine's Day isn't special, but I feel like, it's important to love your loved ones, whether you're in a relationship with your family or your friends, like all the time. So this is
Right.
just a day to
Right.
make it extra special.
Hmm.
You know, and, having experienced many like single Valentine's days myself,
Right.
of course, it's
Yeah.
sometimes tough to look on social media and see like people all
Yeah.
happy. But I
Yeah.
think it's just important to remember that, like, you're not the only, like, if it feels like you're the only one who doesn't have a Valentine, like, make yourself a Valentine. Think of a relative as a Valentine. Like, there's so many ways to celebrate. I feel like everybody, even down to just loving yourself and celebrating yourself, buying yourself chocolates, or if you
Yeah.
have someone you love, celebrate them. I think it's really important that we
Mhm.
not only do we celebrate the ones we love, but we also celebrate ourselves because
Right.
it's a
Self-love
special
is
day.
so big.
Oh yeah,
So always put yourself in that category too of love.
right. Eat some yummy chocolate. Get some
Yes.
candy hearts, something sweet,
Yes.
a sweet
Just
treat.
enjoy today in your own way. Don't compare, you know, you to anyone else. Just enjoy the day for yourself.
Yeah, and if you're not listening to this on Valentine's Day, like this can apply to you every day. Whenever you're
Yes.
listening, you could be listening to this in the middle of April, and it applies to you because love yourself, take care of
Hmm.
yourself, and then treat the ones you love too. So the good
Exactly.
news is that if Valentine's Day is stressful for you, I don't think that this is going to stress you out very much. This episode, it's very special. In fact, Lorraine, we have something very special planned for this episode. Before we get to that, if you're new to this podcast, Mental Health on the Mic, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Google Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, even tell a friend about us. And you can check us out on social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Mental Health on the Mic, or you can check out our new website, mentalhealthonthemic.com. So, Lorraine,
Yes,
we've got a pretty special episode today. Why don't you tell everybody
we
what we have
do.
planned for this Valentine's Day?
Yeah, we have two very special guests planned for this. The first guest is my lovely mom, Kathy. She's my best friend and one of my most favorite and most important people in my life. So I'm very happy to have her on.
It's my first podcast, so I'm so excited to be doing this. So
Oh, we're
I can say moving forward, I've done a podcast.
Yeah, it's cool. It's I can say for my first podcast, it's a pretty cool thing. So our second guest, as you may have guessed, is my mom, Suzanne. Mom, I'm so happy because I've been doing this for a couple years now, and you've always listened and been so supportive and sharing it on Facebook and telling everybody you know and helping me find guests. So now you are a guest, and you're one of the most important people in my life. So I'm so excited to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Now, how do you feel? Because this is your first podcast as well, so pretty exciting.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous
But
too. I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but it
so
helps.
no, definitely. But I know that you all will be kind and, and make it a wonderful process. So I feel good about that.
Cool. Well, before we get into the questions here, Lorraine and I, we really want to talk about, why we want to have you guys on because it is Valentine's Day. But as we said in our intro, Valentine's Day is about so much more than, like the lovey-dovey dating stuff. There's so many important people in our lives, and we both have our own families with so many different relatives. But the more that we've gotten to know each other, we've just found ourselves talking about our moms time and time again. And that's because you guys really are two of the most important people in our lives, literally the reason that we're here, but also just you mean so much to us. And so this is really special for us as well to be able to have you on and just talk to you about, what it's like to have grown up with you and having you in our lives. It's really a special moment for Lorraine and I as well.
Yeah, you guys are very monumental people in our lives. We play a big role. So it was only fitting that we'd have our favorite people for this episode.
Oh, yeah. And there's so much we want to talk to both of you guys about. We're definitely going to be incorporating mental health into this conversation, but here's what we're going to do. So, Mom, I have some questions for you, and so does Lorraine. And Mrs. Affinier, Lorraine will have some questions for you, and I'll have some as well. So, although this is structured, anyone feel free to chime in anytime, but let's get right into it. Mom, I have a question for you.
Okay.
How did your life change when I was born?
Changed 100% for the better, but it definitely changed. It was no longer, doing what I wanted to do on my own schedule. It was all about you and what you needed, but I wouldn't have it any other way because, you just added so much joy to my life, to Dad's life. And so I would say it completely changed, but I feel that I was as ready as you can be. Although, you always wish, it's so trite, but you always wish that babies came with an instruction book of what to do, because I remember so many times feeling like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? I mean, one of the first times I took you to the pediatrician, I just remember panicking. What am I supposed to do? What is he supposed to, just all these little things that you would think are not that difficult. How many times have I been to a doctor's office, before that? Millions of times. But you just, you've got this little tiny being that you're responsible for, and you think they're going to break if you're not careful. And you just, it's pretty daunting, I have to say, but it's pretty incredible as well to know that, that you created this little life, and it's your job to make sure that they're safe and happy and protected. And then I think moving ahead, I think the hardest part of it is eventually when you have to let them go, which is a whole nother, that's not really what you asked me, but that's at the other end compared to that when you're actually born. But, I've read so many things about how, you're working so hard to nurture and love this little creature that you created. And then your job is to set them up so that they can leave you, and you get so attached to them. And then but that's what's supposed to happen. And so I think that's a little bit of a bigger answer than you asked for, but.
Well, but it really actually segues pretty well into my next question, which is one that only a parent really could ever answer. They experience love for their children. It's a bond and a feeling that you really cannot compare to any other kind of love, romantic, platonic. What does the love for a child feel like for you, Mom?
It's really hard to explain. I mean, when you tried college at Belmont, when you were away, I mean, I literally felt like I was missing an arm when you were gone. Oh. I felt like part of me was missing because I was so used to having you around or close by and spend time with you. So it's definitely unlike anything else. And, you just having such a deeper love than you even knew was possible. I mean, I can remember when you were a baby sitting, in your room, being in your room, holding you, and it just was this visceral feeling that you can't really put into words, but it just overcomes your whole body, just holding you. And it's until you actually experience it, I don't think you can really accurately express what that is, but just that feeling of like holding you, like a little teeny baby holding you. And it's just this incredible feeling that washes over you. That's the best I can describe it, but I mean, it's really difficult to put into words.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I got to go look up visceral in the dictionary after this because I'm trying to use context clues. I think I understood everything that you said, and it's kind of awesome and amazing that I'm the person that you're talking about in that situation. But I want to hand it over to you, Lorraine, because I know that you have some questions for my mom.
Yeah, I know there's probably so many times you have amazing experiences with Bennett, but could you maybe say one or two of your favorite memories or moments that you've had with Bennett so far in your life?
Gosh, I mean, there are funny ones and there are just
Or maybe most memorable, if that's
most
easier.
memorable. I mean, a silly story that sticks out to me is he was probably maybe less than 2 years old. And we were in Target and he was in the seat of the shopping cart and I was singing and he says, "Turn the music off."
I don't remember that.
Well, yeah, you were tiny.
Oh my gosh. I was honest from a young age, I suppose. I've always wanted to be like the next Simon Cowell, so I guess,
Right. So that's just something that sticks out because it was so funny. I think, watching him become an excellent public speaker when he was in high school and he was SJ president and he gave lots of speeches, but just watching him give speeches. And then there was a dinner right, I think the night before he graduated, where he got up and just off the cuff spoke for a few minutes. And, my husband and I, we were just blown away the fact that he could just get up and so eloquently convey what he was thinking. He hadn't prepared a speech, and just to think, wow, that's our son. This is the son we brought into the world and raised, and here he is, just so comfortable. And even the other day we were making a birthday video. One of my uncles has the same birthday I do, and his birthday's coming up, and so we were asked to just do a 30-second video because it's his 80th birthday and his daughter's going to put together something. And just, he didn't prepare anything. I just said, let's make this video. And just watching him, either behind the microphone or in front of a camera, I mean, it just blows me away that he just has this presence and he's so comfortable and he's such a great communicator. And that's, so I think watching him in those situations, I know it's more than just one particular situation, but just seeing that, it just really makes me proud and happy.
Aw.
So
That's nice. Thank you.
Great. Another question I have is, what do you love to do with Bennett for like quality time? Like, what's your favorite thing to do, mother-son, that you like to have with him?
I would say before pandemic, it was going to concerts or going to check out, whether it was a big, an actual concert, or there was a local venue where they would have just these free shows on Friday nights, and they had some pretty big names, and we were able to do meet and greets with some relatively famous people. And so those kinds of situations of, going to see music and seeing people that we enjoy, I would say that's one of the things that was pre-pandemic. And then now I would say just, watching shows together, just sitting and watching shows together is fun.
That's great. I know my mom loves music, so she was very happy to hear that. I can see her grinning on the other side of the screen.
Wait, hold on. I have to just interrupt for 1 second. Mrs. Affigne, there's my mom. We saw Andy Grammer at that free venue, and Mrs. Affigne has a connection to Andy, so I think you should tell everybody about that real
talk
quick.
about that.
Well, I guess our connection goes back to Monroe Woodbury. Monroe Woodbury is a pretty big school district in Orange County, which is located in about 50 miles north of New York City. And so Andy Grammer's dad, Red Grammer, is a children's songwriter. And he's phenomenal because he talks about lots of things that children need to discover about their feelings. And so he has these great songs. And so when I was working at Monroe Woodbury, I was the director or music coordinator for the district, and Andy was one of the students there. When I became a building principal in another school district, I would invite Andy's dad, Red Grammer, to come, and he would come and sing there. And so when we started to see Andy become famous, I think I actually talked to him on the phone one time because I called to book Red Grammer at our school. And if I remember correctly, it was Andy who answered the phone, and he told me I couldn't talk with his dad because he was resting. So, but it's just a phenomenal family. I met Andy's mom, Kathy Grammer, and she was just wonderful. And I think they moved out to California for his mom's health, but that's how Andy got discovered. But it was just really nice to know. I mean, I don't have a real personal connection with Andy, but he is a product of the Monroe Woodbury music program. And so all the teachers there are very proud of what he's accomplished in his career.
He's phenomenal.
Yes.
I love him.
Oh yeah, and Mrs. Affinia, we're going to hear a lot more about what you do for your career later on, so I'm super excited about that. Lorraine, back to your questions. What's your next question for my mom?
Yeah, my next question is if you could give Bennett like one piece of advice that would serve him well in life, what would you tell him, or what would that be?
Well, I tell him this all the time, actually, and he probably is tired of me saying it, but I stress the importance of learning how to be able to cope with anything, because I think so many people, obviously getting into the mental health aspect of things, you hear, it's so sad. You see, these teenagers committing suicide, and because they didn't get into the school they wanted to go to, or they have problems that they don't think can be fixed, or just even adults struggling with it. I think it's such a huge crisis in our country that people either don't have someone to talk to, or they don't have the skills to be able to cope when things go wrong, or when things aren't, as you want them to be. And so I've stressed this to him, and I want him to just be able to cope with anything. I'm grateful that was something that my mother taught me. We were extremely close, and she and my dad passed away. It's almost 12 years ago now. But, I never thought I could survive without my mom. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being able to go on if anything happened to her. But when she passed away, even though it was horrible and it was so sad, she had given me that, helped me develop that skill of being able to cope. And I think I even remember at her service saying something about that, about how grateful I was that she taught me that. Because really, at the end of the day, things are going to happen in life. I've told Bennett that recently. We've talked a lot about it, how life just gets more complicated the older you get. And you can pretty much be certain that things are not going to always go your way. I mean, you hope they do, but things are going to happen that are going to be anywhere from just a mild annoyance to devastating. And the most important thing, I think, is if you can learn how to cope with things. It's not going to be easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that it's just there's a magic pill or there's a button you can push or anything that just makes it work. But you have to have that skill, because otherwise, when different things happen in life, you're not going to be able to handle it. And then everything's going to unravel. And that's not good all around.
Yeah, Mom, before we move on, I just want to say, I mean, our listeners know I've actually talked a couple times on the podcast about the time that, your parents, my grandparents passed away. And, that time in your life and in my life, I mean, it was wild as an 8-year-old, because it's obviously very difficult to go through, but being that age and kind of not knowing probably the half of what's so difficult about that time in your life. I mean, to watch you go through that was really difficult, but then to see the way that you were so strong with it, I mean, it was heroic, because I couldn't imagine either, what that feeling is like. And it's very difficult to talk about, but the way that you handled it. And, another thing is that was a tough time in your life, between losing them so close, and then you broke your kneecap like 3 months before that. And, you were dealing with that, and you're already taking care of me, and I'm, you're a stay-at-home mom, and you're having to do everything for me and doing everything for your parents. And then to lose them, I know, is so tough. But, I think that 12 years later, I just see that strength, and it's as sad as it can be sometimes. I think it's really inspiring. So yeah, that's, it's definitely a defining moment in my life, seeing you go through that.
Thank you. And I have to say, I mean, you just were the apple of their eye. I mean, they just lit up whenever you came over.
Oh,
They just could not get enough time with you. And I'm grateful that we were able to spend a lot of time with them, and they just loved you. And I know that they're looking down, and they're so incredibly proud of you.
I was just going to say, I think they're watching this podcast taping right now. So Mrs. Affinia, we're going to move on to you, and Lorraine has some questions for you. But before that, I was wondering if you had any comments on anything that my mom has said so far in this podcast.
I think she spoke so well about her feelings and her ideas about you. I think that she really transmitted the challenges of being a mom. I mean, there are, I mean, as much as you love your child, and as much as you love your family, there are days when it's really hard. Probably the hardest thing for a mom to see is to help their child navigate social situations in school, because we're not there to see what's going on. And so we have to then help our children figure out how to navigate those social situations. And it, breaks your heart when your child is unhappy. But I think your mom's, she really spoke very well about all of the challenges and the joys. And so it was well balanced. Thank you.
All right. So Lorraine, you have some questions for your mom.
Yeah. So how was it like, me being in your life? Like, I mean, kind of same question that Bennett asked his mom, but
Okay.
how was your life transformed, and best in maybe some hard ways too?
Okay. Well, we wanted you for so long. And so when you came along, it felt like we were married for a number of years before we had you, but you made us a family. You made us, and then you gave more meaning to our existence in our life, and you became the focus of everything that we did. And we made a decision too that Dad would stay home with you and I would continue to work. I mean, I had the health insurance, so that was a driving force there. But it was hard for me because you and I have had this conversation where I do have a level of guilt, a sense of guilt, that I didn't spend as much time with you as I wanted to spend with you. And so that's something that I've had to figure out over time, and how to spend more time with you. And so there were challenges of working and making sure that I did a good job at work, but there was also the challenge of making sure I did an even better job being your mom and being home. So, but you were like the best gift ever. I can't imagine anything that I've had happen to me in my life that's better than having you in my life. So, and every day is a new experience. And I think back over time of your development, and I can't think of any stage I didn't even enjoy. Even the terrible twos were not so bad. So I could say that, besides giving our life more meaning, I would say that you've just brought incredible joy to our life. And so for that, I'm always grateful. And I'm proud of you, very, very proud of you.
Thank you. No, I think, I hate, hearing the of guilt. Because I think, with your work and your passions, like at a young age, I didn't see it, but like looking back, I'm like, you were doing really great things and you impacted many children and schools. So I'm very proud of you for that. And I think over time, we've made up the time that if you want to deem lost, but we've had so many fun trips together and we continue to make trips together. So that's kind of banking our time when I love having those times with you. Another question I have is, what was like the hardest? Is there a moment that sticks out to you that was like the hardest part of parenting me, or like a hard part or time where you didn't really know how to navigate it?
Okay. Well, I mean, I would probably say when you needed surgeries when you were younger, and we had to have, and so spending that time in the hospital with you, staying there overnight. We were there sometimes 5 or 6 days at a clip, trying to help you navigate that. I think you navigated it better than I did. I do, in some respects. And we did reach out. We reached out to a phenomenal pediatric psychiatrist to help you to make, help you understand what was happening to you. But I look back on those days and they were just hard. It was hard to see you in pain. It was hard to see you being there. That was probably the hardest thing that I ever did in my life, was having to help you and be strong for you and not let you see how it was impacting me, being strong for you. So you would have you'd be in the best position to social, emotionally, and physically handle what was happening to you.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay, well, I have some questions for you, Miss Affinia, and I have to confess that when I saw Lorraine's questions for my mom, I thought, they're so good, I'm going to basically ask the same questions to you and just reverse it. But you know what? That's great, because that means we're going to get some really great answers. So what is the most exciting part for you about having a daughter?
It's having, there's been all different stages. It was having, a baby daughter, having that bond. And then as she got older, watching her develop, and then seeing her challenges and having those conversations. And like she said, I mean, some of my favorite things to do is that we do road trips. And I like the road trips because, you know, I'm not accessible really to work. And so I'm able to just focus on her. And we're able to have these conversations and talk about life. And to me, it's having, you know, my best friend. She is my best friend, essentially, because she's the closest person to me in my life. And so, you know, and that's one of the best things, is just having that relationship with her, and watching her grow and being excited about it, and help, you know, being proud of her, and all of those things. I mean, she's had this incredible journey, and I know it's just beginning in some respects, the real exciting part, because she's getting older and she's developing, becoming more mature, and she's selecting and deciding what she wants to do with her life, you know, post high school. And so there's an exciting component to it too. It's like I'm living vicariously through my daughter, because she's got all these things going on. So it's just wonderful.
That sounds amazing. And now I'm wondering even more if there's one or two particular memories that really stick out to you with Lorraine.
Well, you know, it's funny when you were mentioning the shopping in the store, the shopping cart. You know, Lorraine, she just liked to take off in open spaces. Even Aunt Linda, I don't know if you remember this, Lorraine, where I told Aunt Linda, do not let her out of the cart. Keep her in the carriage. Do not let her out of the cart. And you convinced her to let you go. And next thing you know, we got all these adults chasing you around Macy's because you're crawling underneath. It was funny. But I can also remember too, it must have been about maybe 2.5, 3 years old. And I also had to like strap you into the seat in the cart, because you would just climb out and want to take off. And I remember we were online. It was during the holidays. I was trying to get some shopping done. And you just kept saying, you know, I want to get out. Let me out. And I kept saying, no, just stay there. I'll get you to the car. We'll be home. And then you can just, you know, do whatever you want to do. So she's just sitting there and she's looking around and she starts yelling, help, help, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. And she's trying to pull herself out of the seat, and people like laughing. The cashier was hysterical.
Oh my God.
So so everybody's stressed, waiting in line, these long lines. It's hot. People have coats on, and now people are just laughing about this kid who just, you know, was just so humorous. So it's one of my favorite memories.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, and then Lorraine asked this question to my mom, but if you could give your daughter one piece of advice that you think would serve her well in her life, what would it be?
I would say continue to think about other people's feelings. Continue, because she does. Continue to be aware of how people are feeling about situations, and continue to stand up for folks when you think something, and she does that. I mean, she's always been that way, where she stood up when she felt somebody was being bullied or somebody was just feeling awful. She reaches out. So just continue to be aware of other people's struggles and continue to try to help.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know, as you mentioned and Mom, you mentioned before, you know, becoming a parent, your world revolves around your child, and yet you have this life of your own and so many things that you already done and you still want to accomplish in your life. So I'm wondering, Mrs. Affigne, what's been the proudest or a few of the proudest moments in your life, and maybe some valuable lessons that you've learned along the way?
I mean, I would say probably having her was one of the most important things in my life. And that to me was a true gift. I think the degrees that I have, the hard work, and some of them one was when she was, you know, after she was born, and trying to demonstrate to her that, you know, with hard work, you do get a reward from that. And it's not just the degree, it's the learning, and how important the learning is. More important. The learning is more important than the grade. The learning is more important than the degree. It's what you take away from what you understand and learn, or whatever program that you're involved in. I think I'm so proud of what she's doing with you, Bennett, because since probably 2002 was when I really started to recognize the importance of social emotional learning. Not just dealing with and helping children navigate the academics of school, but the social emotional learning, the behavioral component, you know, how do you develop there? And I've spent most of my career thereafter was explaining to educators and bringing in programs to school that will help educators address that, because educators are more comfortable with the academics than they are with the social emotional learning. And there's a big focus on it now. And so I'm so proud of her that she is doing something in a different forum, reaching other young people, that is demystifying and breaking down those barriers and addressing social norms around social emotional learning. And so I am so proud of her for that.
Mm. Well, I am really curious a little bit more about the work that you do, and maybe if you want to explain your career, because there is something really interesting that I think we can find with mental health. But first, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about what you do?
Okay. So I always felt that you have to address both. You have to address the behavioral component, the social emotional learning, in tandem with the academics. And there's a lot of research out there. And this is actually the basis of my dissertation for my doctorate, was studying that and studying the models and looking at implementation science. How can we do better at this? How can we bring more programs to children? And so early on, when I was a building principal, I discovered positive behavioral interventions and supports. PBIS is the model that's known. And it's a model that helps educators deliver universal social emotional learning to a whole school population. And then there are tiers of intense services that happen on top of it. So you have the universal, everybody learns, everybody is taught the expected behaviors in school. And then for students who have difficulty navigating that or have other social emotional issues like anxiety, I'm not talking about clinical depression, but depression and other things, can be addressed by your school counselors. And then more intensive may need the school psychologist or the social worker or maybe outside services, but it's tiers of support that kids can access in a school setting. And so until I retired, I was actually implementing that model in school districts where I worked. And now that I'm retired and I do some interim work in districts, like right now I'm an interim assistant principal in a high school. And right now I'm also, it was great. I did listen to the podcast with the school council that you brought on, and it was wonderful because you talked about that anxiety level. And so I'm starting to see that play out as children are applying to colleges, very highly competitive colleges, and then not getting into colleges or waiting for those letters to come, and just how that all plays out in a school setting. So in districts where I work now, as I'm retired as an interim, I'm often asked to either implement or re-implement, or these levels of support through a PBIS model, or even in isolation of it. Just how do we get services to kids who need those services? Right now, it's part of a model called multi-tiered systems of supports. That's typically what districts across the country are trying to implement in school settings in order to bring social emotional learning and to everybody in a school population.
Mm-hmm. Well, the work you're doing there, Mrs. Affigne, is so important. You touched on the mental health aspect of it. And I'm curious, over the years with your experience in education, is there anything about these last couple of years in particular? I think that we're really seeing a rise in anxiety, depression, just stress in general. And, as an educator, having that perspective through that lens, what have you observed about maybe why we're seeing such an uptick in kids feeling pressure socially, emotionally, and academically?
I think that some of it is we're in a better position to diagnose. I think that our diagnostic tools in the education setting have gotten better. And so we're able to capture those students. I think that we've put more monies to for counselors and psychologists and social workers. But I think what's happened over the last 2 years, I think remote learning for many. Now, for some, the remote learning, the live streaming, however you want to say what happened during the pandemic when there were stay-at-home orders. In some respects, I think that it was a failed experiment, because I think that children who needed or were doing okay in school because of things that were there for them, that once they were functioning solely at home, that we started to see a rise in the social emotional component because there weren't those natural supports in place for them. And so for students who struggle social emotionally, the remote learning has really, it's just easier to identify those students who are struggling. And I think too that even in the school setting, the masks themselves, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be wearing masks, but I think we have to recognize that when we communicate it's not just verbal, it's your visuals. You're looking at the person, you're taking in their body language, you're watching their lips, you can see their eyes, their smile. A lot of that is missing, and so people aren't feeling that connectedness either, and I think that's contributed to the rise in the level of anxiety that children are feeling. And I think that we have to be very aware of it. And I think we have to now listen more, because we don't have the other cues in front of us. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's tough. It's tough being a teenager. It's tough. And then also getting accepted to college and not knowing whether you're going to actually be able to attend it in person, or you're going to be doing it from home, or right. The whole college experience these last 3 years have not been what I experienced for students. It's just been a very disconnected time for them. So, and it's been a struggle. It's harder to get the work done. It's harder to engage because you don't feel like you're fully engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, you touched on something, Mrs. Affinia, that I'm really interested, Mom and Mrs. Affinia, if either of you have any takes on this. But, I think our generation, the world that Lauren and I are growing up in, is different in many ways. And the last couple of years really have been unlike anything you've probably ever seen, that anyone's really ever seen. So I'm wondering, maybe Mom, we'll start with you. What would you say as a parent? You're experiencing your own ways of getting through things, but what is it like to see us and see kids going through things that are just not like what they were when you were our age?
Well, it's heartbreaking to know that, you all can't experience what you should be able to experience. Obviously there are parts of high school and college that aren't positive, but most of them are positive. And to, not be able to do activities, to not be able to have a graduation, to not be able to have a prom. I mean, it's just, it's awful. I mean, there's no way around that. And, it was already so stressful for everyone beforehand. And then this just changed things. Although I will say, in one respect, you could argue that we were all going at such a breakneck speed before the pandemic, and it did force people to slow down and take a breath. So, I mean, that piece of it, mm-hmm. I think, it's so overused, but silver lining, but just to get people to slow down a little bit and not be so frenzied all the time. I mean, that piece is a positive, but I don't think it outweighs all the negatives that have come with it. And so I feel really terribly, I know that the educators have adapted the best that they can, and thank goodness for the technology. If we were in this situation without all the technology, I really don't even know what would be. So, but I don't have the insight that you do, Kathy, but so you tell me what you're saying.
No, but you do. You do, because you've touched on some really important aspects that it did cause us to slow down a bit and spend some time at home with our families. And so you're absolutely right. At the beginning, there was that positive. I felt it. I was staying at home. I was working from home, and I was seeing my family a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is kind of a hot topic, and it's a little bit off track here, but it's definitely in the context of what it's like for Lorraine and I to grow up in this generation. We want to know from both of you what your take is on social media, and we've talked about that on the show ourselves. What is your take on this new kind of digital age that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was nothing like it when you were our age. So I'm interested to hear what both of you have to say about that, whoever wants to start.
You want to start, Kathy?
Okay. I would say this, that the impact of social media, there's always been a way that people could target others. I go back to my time in high school. We didn't obviously have social media. And so what did people do? They wrote nasty notes on, using crayon, wrote nasty stuff on student lockers, right? Anonymously to target them. They put anonymous notes in their lockers. So these kinds of things have happened over time. But I think where social media is different is that your audience is expanded. You do something, and the possibility of thousands of people seeing something grows exponentially in moments. You write something on somebody's locker back in the 70s and 80s, it was there until somebody either covered it up or, and then you didn't have as much access. And I think that's the biggie here, that students can say things and do things, and it's easier to do it when they're using their phone or sitting at home on their computer. I'm not sure they would behave the same way if they had that, that personal contact in person, if they would do the same thing to that severity. And so it's had a huge impact on our children's development, their level of anxiety, bullying, and all of the things that happen when children are bullied. I mean, it's a real, but there's lots of positives to social media too. But as with everything else, the negatives sometimes are talked more about than the positives, and kids will feel the negative aspect of social media more so than the lasting effects of the positive comments that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much hits the nail on the head of something we talked about last season, because there's a lot of great things about social media, but there's, as you said, Mrs. Affigne, unfortunately, a lot of not so good things. Mom, what's your take on all of this?
Kathy said it really well, so I don't know that I would be able to add a whole lot. Other than I definitely agree, the fact that, back in the day, if someone was mean to you, you came home and you could escape it. But now there's no escaping it. It's 24/7. It's such a wide reach. So I think that part is really awful. I do see lots of positives in social media when it's used the right way. But unfortunately, I think it's, got so many negatives. I mean, I even feel it myself. I mean, the fear of missing out aspect,
Yeah.
I'll see people gathering and I'm not there. And I'm thinking, or a friend group or something. I'm thinking, wow, I wish I had a group like that, or I wish I had gotten invited to that party or that gathering. And so that part of feeling left out, and feeling the hurt of not being included is something. I mean, I don't think that's exclusive to teenagers. I think that goes for everyone, but I think it's especially hard, especially, with Snapchat or with Instagram, constantly, like you all talked about on the podcast before, knowing if there's a party and you're not invited, you're going to know about it, and it's going to be in your face, and it's going to make you feel terrible. I mean, you're a human. I mean, I don't know anyone who could see something like that and not be at least a little upset. I mean, you could be the most perfect person in the world, and anybody would get upset by that, because it's just the emotion of feeling left out is really difficult. So I think that really makes it hard, but the fact of being able to, that it makes the world smaller, that being able to connect, the fact that you all met, because you wouldn't have met because but for social media. I mean, the fact that, Bennett got a comment on his podcast from someone in Australia, someone was listening in Japan the other day, the fact that there's this wide reach with the internet. I mean, there are a lot of great things about it, but I definitely echo what Kathy was saying, that it just, we have to be mindful of what it's doing to kids and how it's making the anxiety so much worse. And that's a huge problem.
Oh, yeah. Lorraine, before we keep going, I just wonder if you have any thoughts on anything that my mom or your mom has said. Take it away.
Yeah, no, I think social media, it's a weird world there, and we've grown up with it and we're kind of thrown into it, and there's definitely some negatives to it. I've been dealt with some hard cards with social media, and I know many kids have, and it's hard. But I think, looking at the positives, I met amazing people through social media. I met Bennett. I met my best friend Kaylee. Like, there's just so many people that I've met through it that, I wouldn't want to take it back. So I think it's very important, though, that there's more awareness, bullying and cyberbullying and all those hard things. In my school, we've had, things. I remember I did that whole anti-bullying thing at that college in middle school.
Dutchess Community College.
Yes.
It was a leadership, and I forgot the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was really eye-opening. I was in middle school then, so I wasn't even I didn't have a high school mindset, but doing that at a younger age, I really think it impacted me a lot, because it threw me into a room for an hour, and I was just hearing all the statistics and all this information that I really wasn't exposed to before. And it really impacted me a lot. I was able to, with my classmates and peers, conduct a whole week-long awareness week. And, you know, I believe that some people really took something from that. So in that way, I commend people who are, you know, in our age group trying to do something about it and, you know, trying to spread awareness for that. I think hopefully more and more people take action. And so I think, you know, our generation can maybe turn the tables a bit. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, well, that was well, two things. One, I want to touch back on something that Mrs. Affinia said, because Lorraine, I think what you said about, you know, spreading awareness to others is exactly what your mom wished for you, as far as continuing to care about other people, because you are
Yeah.
taking something you've experienced with bullying, and then you're learning more about other people who have had it, you know, just as bad, and then, you know, you're telling other people like, hey, this stuff matters. And I think, you know, in that sense, you were always kind of doing, I guess we do it on the podcast now, but you were telling your peers, people that needed to hear it. So I think that that's really awesome. And then
Thank you.
what you said too, Lorraine, was a perfect segue into my next question for either of you, which is,
Perfect.
what do you like and dislike about our generation?
I think some of it is a result of the internet, social media. It's that immediate wanting to get feedback, whether it be, and usually it's gratification. And I think sometimes that people forget that, you know, all good things come to people who wait, that there is a process that needs to be had in order for you to get some things that you want. And so I think in some respects, I just wish that your generation was just a little more patient and a little more forgiving, and giving people an opportunity to think before they react, or to do things before they react. And so I just wish there was a, you know, take a moment, count to 3, you know,
Yeah.
because a lot of things that happen, especially on social media, it's that impulsiveness, and you can't unring that bell. And so
It's
I
the
just
thumbs.
wish there was,
It's the
is that what
thumbs.
it is? The thumbs, the strong thumbs. So that's one thing I wish, that there would just be a little more thought before a good or bad reaction. That's just my thinking.
Uh-huh. And
Oh, I
Mom,
definitely
what do you
agree.
think?
I would add that it seems not all young people, but it seems there's not the same drive. And I think because of the fact of the immediate instant gratification for the internet, with, you know, you want to watch something, anything you want to find out, you can, you know, in 2 seconds on Google, you can get an answer to anything. You can watch any show you want to watch. You can do anything. You don't have to wait for anything at all. And things come relatively quickly. And so I feel like in some ways it translates to how people have their work ethic, and the idea that, you know, it takes so much hard work to accomplish anything, and you have to put the time in, and you have to really work at it. And if it doesn't happen right away, you know, you can't give up. And I'm not saying everyone's like that, but it seems that in some situations you see almost a sense of entitlement, like, well, you know, I did this little bit of work, so you know, I just did this or that. I'm entitled to have the result I want right away, and I shouldn't have to wait. So it's connected, but I think it's true. But all of us, I mean, you know, the fact that you can go online and order something from Amazon, and it can be at your door in 2 hours or 3 hours, or the fact that you can, anything you want to know, you can just, you don't have to go to the library. I mean, you know, spent lots of time at the library. I'm sure, Kathy, you spent even more than I did, but you know, you want to find something out. I mean, it's not just a quick answer. You've got to go and research it and find it out. And so it just changes. I think with adults too, I don't think it's just your generation, Bennett and Lorraine. I think it's all of us have been changed by it. But I think the whole concept of, you know, really putting in the work when you want something, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be just a snap of the fingers and you get what you want. So,
Well, Mom, starting with you, I mean, what kind of, if there is any, like, what kind of hope do you see for our generation? Again, what maybe do you like about us?
Yeah. What's some
no, I don't mean to be negative. I mean,
Oh,
I
I
think
know.
No.
I think one thing that's so fascinating is, you know, when I was growing up, it felt like there were only a few career paths that were even viable or available to us. I didn't know really about all the different things that were out there. I mean, it just seemed that there was this limit. There's sort of a few different areas to pursue. And then with you all having access to the whole world at your fingertips, I feel that, you know, for you, Bennett, for example, like with all the creative endeavors that you're pursuing, I mean, it's just, these things are available to you and you know about them and you can pursue them. I mean, the fact that you can set up a podcast studio at home, the fact that you can do so many things and know about all these different careers and different options, I just think is great because, you know, so many people, it just, I don't know, maybe it was just in my world, it just seemed like there were people, you know, there were maybe 3 or 4 different career paths and that seemed to be it. And I feel like it's way more open now. And I think you all are way more up for adventure and you're up to find things that really suit you and pursue it and to be able to pursue it. I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but.
What do you think, Mrs. Affinia?
Well, no, I want to piggyback on what your mom was saying that, you know, our generation, when you wanted to do research, you had to go to a library, you had to go to a source. But you folks don't have that challenge. Or people just didn't even bother to explore or to expand their thinking or to, you know, learn more about things. I think your generation automatically knows, well, let me do a search, let me find out. I don't know something, let me ask Google, let me ask Alexis. And so you folks have this natural ability to be excited and to wonder about things and seek information. I think the differences and challenges for you is that finding sites that have true information and factual information, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so you're now challenged to sort through that. We didn't have a whole lot of that when I was younger. You can put a lot of weight on what a newspaper said or what a journal said, or the anchors on TV. They had time to make sure their facts were straight before they published. But now there's such a race to be the first to put it out there that there isn't that. And so you folks now have the challenge of figuring out what's factual and what's not factual, or what maybe is factual but needs more exploration before you can prove that maybe that's not, that something else is. But you just have this natural wonder that I really appreciate, because you folks are wanting to know answers. And I think to become a critical and a creative learner, I think you have to have that. And so I think your generation is really set to be critical and creative thinkers.
That's great.
I also just wanted to include, I feel like, I like to think our generation is more progressive in terms of just people and human beings and beliefs. And so in that regard, I see a lot of opportunities, and I see a lot of growth that I think our generation will kind of carry through in this world. I think we have minds that I think we have more open minds than I think previous generations have had. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what we can do with that.
Yeah. I agree. I think that when something bothers us, we stand up for it. And it's not just what's bothering us selfishly, it's what's going on in our world. As many terrible things have happened as you've seen on the news, over the years. I mean, gosh, in my area, when there was a tragedy of a school shooting, the Parkland school shooting, I mean, we're right near DC, so kids are getting out of school, they're marching, they're protesting. I mean, climate change is another huge issue. I mean, these things that do look scary, and at the same time, our generation is saying, well, we refuse to accept this. We are going to fight until we get what we deserve. And frankly, it's not just protecting us, it's protecting future generations, because that's, I feel like, right, an ultimate thing.
The domino effect. For sure.
Yeah, domino effect for sure. Mom, one thing really quickly, because we're going to wrap up in just a minute, but I wanted to mention something that we kind of skipped over. Your career, a little bit opposite situation, because unlike Lorraine's mom, you were stay at home for the first 13 years of my life. So I had the ability to be with you all the time. And then when you went back to work, it was kind of tough for me because I was so reliant on you. And one thing that I guess kind of regret at that age was I had a hard time understanding how important it was for you to go and do something that completed you as a person, because you're more than a mother. You're a human being who has desire to help other people and to make a difference, and that's what you do with your work. And so I know we kind of joke about how like I kind of, you explain what you do and I kind of like, I don't know, get a little bit bored, but in all seriousness, I think it's really important. And I think, you're really passionate about what you do, so maybe if you want to just explain A, what it was like to go back to work, and B, what it is that you do.
Got it. So it was really difficult to find a job after being home for so long, and I think it's getting a little bit better now, but it's pretty frustrating when you had a career, you chose to stop your career to raise your child, and then when you want to go back, you feel penalized for having taken time away. So that part is just a frustrating thing, but I think hopefully society will get better about that and realize that you shouldn't penalize somebody because they chose to take care of their family, and that should be valued, it shouldn't be a negative. But I got really lucky. I got connected with another mom who has a financial advisory practice. So I started off just part-time, and the job listing that I responded to was asking for just something to be just a flexible project on the computer, organizing files. And so I thought, okay, well, that could work with Bennett's schedule. So let me give that a try. And I found out that becoming a financial advisor could be a really great career because it's flexible. You can schedule your client appointments when you want to schedule them. Before Bennett was born, I had been a lawyer, and if you have to go to court, you can't really tell the judge, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I have a field trip I'd like to go on with my son. I can't go to court today. I mean, it just it's not an option, but this looked like a really great option. So after not having taken a test for 20 years, I had to start taking tests again. And so I became licensed to become a financial advisor and also to sell insurance. And so I've been doing that since 2015. And now I have, some of my own clients that I work with, helping them with financial planning, just anything from someone young who's just starting out to people who are nearing retirement, but just helping them to identify their goals and figure out how they're going to achieve those goals, especially in retirement, and day-to-day budgeting and things like that. I've recently discovered that one of the parts of the job that I've been doing all along is helping people with insurance, but I realized that that's just really is where my heart is. And so I help people with life insurance and long-term care insurance. And so the life insurance helps if, God forbid, somebody should die earlier than you would expect, then their family would have money to be able to carry on after they are gone. And then with the long-term care insurance, that's to help people who, as you get older and you need care, whether it's in a nursing home or at home, to have money to help so you don't go through every penny that you spent your whole life working on building up. And I really like it because I'm giving people something that's guaranteed versus, my boss helps people with investing and invest their money for them. And it's extremely important, but I don't feel comfortable being the person in charge of somebody's whole life savings and telling them how they should invest it. That's just not comfortable for me, but it is comfortable for me helping someone get coverage so they have peace of mind, so that they know if you've got a young couple that just had a baby and God forbid one of the person who's earning the most money in the relationship gets hit by a bus, let's say, and dies, just unexpectedly, the fact that I can help them have money in that scenario so they don't have to change their lifestyles completely, so they can just still, even though they'll be obviously devastated and dealing with the grief, but on top of that, I don't want them to also have the stress of not knowing how they're going to be able to survive without that person's income, without that person saving for future retirement. So it's not the happiest of topics because nobody wants to think about, what should happen when you're not here anymore, but it's incredibly important. And it's something that just gives me a lot of pleasure to know that I'm helping people to have peace of mind. And then they can go on and check that off their list and not have to worry about that.
It seems like from both of your stories and your career lines and your paths, like it's great that you both help people, but in completely different ways. And I think that just shows your character, both of you. So I think Ben and I can agree that we're very proud to be, your child, and proud that you guys are our moms in that regard.
You.
Oh yeah, I took the words out of my mouth because Mom, I was just going to say how proud I am of you. And I think, I'm inspired by the way that you help people. I want to help people. That's one thing I want to do with this podcast, is help people make a difference. So yeah, I think that from both of you, I think one thing we both really want to hear, Lorraine and I, is, you know, as parents, you know, you take care of us, and then, you know, we've talked about our generation as a whole, and you see what kids like us are going through today. And I want to know from each of you what your message might be to anybody who is struggling, who is losing hope, whatever they might be going through, condition wise or whatever. But what's your message to a kid who's just holding on and saying, like, I don't know, it's just tough right now? What's your message to someone like that?
I would say, find a trusted adult. If it's not one of your parents, find someone at school, find somebody, a friend's parent, someone that you trust, and let them know that you're hurting or that something's bothering you, and reach out and try to get help somehow, because things get better.
Mhm.
We've all been in situations where you have a horrible day and you feel like, oh my gosh, the world's going to end. This is ridiculous. And then you wake up the next day and, things have a way of getting better. Or I don't know. I feel so sad for people who don't take that step to reach out. And then the next thing you know, you hear they've committed suicide or died by suicide. It breaks my heart, because, there's so many resources available, but it's so hard when you're struggling to make that call or to make that request for help. But I would just, urge people to know that there are people that care about them. And a lot of times you hear about how the signs of someone who's suicidal, that it's not always obvious. Sometimes it is, but it isn't always obvious. And so, just know that there's always somebody who cares about you and who's available to help you, and to just reach out for that.
Absolutely. Mrs. Affinia?
Well, I think it was very well said. Isolating yourself is not going to be helpful. And if you can't reach out to an adult, and every child has multiple people in their lives, although sometimes when they're so stressed they can't think about it, reach out to a friend, reach out to a peer, and then allow them to help you. I mean, that's the best advice. That you can't, if you isolate yourself, it's not going to get better. And then there are so many resources, and Susanna's right. I mean, if you can just think tomorrow's a better day, there isn't anything in this world that can't be overcome, that there is a way out. It will get better. I'm not saying it'll be great, it'll be hard, but it will get better. And that your life is so important. Everybody's life is so important. And when a child in a school setting commits suicide, I mean, I've lived through it several times in my career, it has such an impact on everybody in that school community. I mean, everybody mourns the loss of a child. A child is a precious gift to society, to a community. And so we have to also be aware we are responsible. We did suicide training with every adult in our community. Every adult in our school district got trained suicide training. And one of the important lessons that we learned, it was from NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. It's a national company that people can seek and bring in. They'll do free training in any school setting for folks. But it's really important to reach out, because there's so much out there, and we don't want to lose any more children. It's devastating when it happens, and everybody is important.
Absolutely. Well, it's conversations like these. I can speak for myself, Lauren. I know I speak for you, where we feel so grateful that we have support systems like we have with you, because, whatever it is that you're going through, and I say this to anybody listening or watching right now, it can get better. It will get better. And if you ask for help, it'll make a huge difference. Now, just on a more sentimental note, Lorraine and I, we want to each take a moment with each of you individually to thank you and just have that moment. And Mom, I want to ask you, and then I'll give you my message. What would you want to say to me on this Valentine's Day?
I would say that I love you more than anything else in the world. And like Kathy said, you're the most incredible gift I've ever received. And watching you grow up and explore your passions, and the fact that you're a leader, that you're not a follower, that you do what you want to do. And I think that's so great, because it's so difficult to do that. It's a lot easier to just follow along with what everyone else is doing, but you decide, what you want to do, and you go after it, and you do it, and you do so many things so well, and I'm incredibly proud of you. And I'm always here for you, no matter what time of day it is. You know that. You can always wake me up in the middle of the night or whatever, anytime. And I treasure the relationship we have, and I'm so incredibly proud of you.
Yeah, well, I want to say to you that, you've always been my biggest fan. You've always been there for me, whatever I need in any capacity. And, I'm always going to cherish the moments, from the time I can remember, my first memory. Whether it's the time you spent with me when you were at home, or it's just, the showing up at different events, helping me with projects, helping me with school, going through life with me, and all of our memories as a family, I'm just always going to cherish forever. And I even think that in my position, which our listeners know about me not being in college at the moment, I don't know if a lot of kids my age would say that they love to spend the time that they do with their parents at home on a weekend, but I love every moment of it. And so to you and Dad, because Dad will be listening to this, I just want to thank you so much for bringing me into this world. And, I may have just turned 21, but I'll always be your little boy.
Oh, thank you.
So, Mrs. Affinia, I'd love to hear your message to Lorraine, and then Lorraine, whatever you want to say to your mom.
Actually, I want to say something to you first. Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
Can I change things up? How many people have heard the whole phrase college and career readiness?
Right.
Have you ever heard that? College and career readiness. It was tied to that Common Core learning standards, the common learning standards that we were supposed to follow in this country. And unfortunately, we kind of forgot about the career readiness. We focused so much on the college. And so we should have been, and part of some of my work too is in schools, is that there is career readiness, and that's a different path than a college degree. So lots of times it leads to certification and credentials or whatever it is. And so I think that we made kids feel badly about not taking the college, path. And I think as educators, we failed. I think that we should have put the emphasis on both, the different career paths that children have and that they have access to. And I would say too, that part of what's happening now is that our country's infrastructure is falling apart. A lot of it is because we don't have those people in those careers who can do that work with the engineers, work with the architects. And so I think that we need to really rephrase, and I think we need to paradigm shift of our focus, because we need people to feel comfortable and good about no matter what they decide to do in their life. And some people, it takes them a while to figure out what their career paths are. So I just want to say that to you, Bennett. And so they have to ask me the question again, because I forgot what it was.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for saying that, and your insight as an educator and your support just as a human being means so much. So the question is, what's your message to Lorraine on this Valentine's Day? And then Lorraine, I want to hear your message then to your mom.
Okay. Oh, honey, I'm just so proud of you. I mean, when I think about who you're becoming, like I said, I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you. And I just enjoy all my time that I spend with you. And I've spent my life trying to do what be there for you. And so I'm hoping that I'm there and that you realize that. Again, I'm not going to go back to my guilt of not being there all the time when you were younger, but I just want to, it's comforting for me to know that you can always reach out to me, no matter where you are, what's going on, whatever time of day it is, that I am there, and I want you to know that. But I also want you to know how proud I am of you.
Thank you, Mom. Oh my God, I hate crying on oh my gosh, I'm such an emotional person. I think I get that from you.
I think so too. I think you're right. I won't deny it.
Mom, I just want to say thank you for everything you just said. And, again, you are there for me. And I realize that through the hardest parts of my life and through the fun parts, I always loved everything I had with you. And you're like my best friend, like you said. So thank you for always supporting me and believing me, and taking the time to work on school projects. Like Bennett said, when he said that, I was like, I remember in elementary school, I had this project and we stayed up like late doing it. We'd go to different stores trying to find things, or like last minute I needed a binder and I couldn't find a binder that I liked. So we went to 15 different craft stores to find one. But I know I really appreciate you. And thank you for loving me and supporting me and being a good mom.
You made it easy, honey.
Oh, well, that on that binder note, I think it's the little things that you guys do for us too, right? It's not just being there, it's not just being our moms, but it's knowing who we are on every little individual level and taking that opportunity to make our lives as full and enriched as possible. So we just want to both thank you so much for being on our podcast. And listen, like my sign says, hug someone you love this Valentine's Day. And, whoever it is in your life, whoever it is that you can go to, just appreciate them and embrace them. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hey, follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Mental Health on the Mic. You can check out our new website, mentalhealthonthemic.com. And if you like this podcast, which is on Apple Podcast and Spotify and iHeart and Google Podcast, share with a friend, share with your mom. I mean, I think your mom might get a kick out of hearing this, and watch us on Mom Vibes. Watch us on YouTube. You can see the mom vibes. Who wouldn't want to see that? I've got a heart behind me. I've got this sign behind me.
We have the colors. We got it all.
Oh yeah. Oh, how can I forget the red and the pink and the purple? Of course, you got to check this out on YouTube. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening or watching. This has been Mental Health on the Mic. Happy Valentine's Day.